Hello, here we are for one more session about the technologies under the key umbrella, that being Drools, JBPM, Optoplanner, and Cogito. Hey, Percelli.
Hey, Karina. So I'm really excited about today's session. It's the first time that we have a community member presenting to us.
Exactly. So today we are going to have KimJohn, and he is the co-founder and tech lead of Logicdrop, which is a company that actually uses Drools in its core and is delivering a huge value for customers around the. So I actually want to see how they are using it because Kim told us that they are like using Knative and that they have CamelK and it's all tech fancy. So I'm looking forward for his presentation. And he's even looking towards moving already to Cogito, Percelli.
Yeah, that's awesome. We were just chatting before we started here, and he said, "Well, I believe that it's going to be a smooth transition. I've been using the executable model has been a while, so he seems to know very well what we're doing here, and that's going to be very interesting." But before getting him, he's just taking the time and opportunity to call all the community, everyone that is watching here. Feel free to submit your session to the KieLive. We want to hear from this community. What do you have? What have you been using? Drools, GBPM, and now the Optoplanner, and now the Cogito thing. So it would be great to hear also from you, and you have here in the next sessions.
Exactly. So let's bring the guy. Hey, Kim John, welcome and thanks for accepting the invite for being here today.
Thank you. Hello. Nice to see everyone again.
Awesome.
Yes. So, Kim John. So, what is Logic Drop? Like, actually, before coming to Logic Drop, could you just tell us how did you start getting involved with Drools? Was it because of this need that you have today for Logic Drop? Have you worked with it before? How did you get involved in the community?
It actually started, we were brought in by one of the largest companies in the world, Nestle. And I'm sure you've all seen Gerber, the little baby, and the life insurance that they offer. We were brought in to help optimize their process for using rules for the loan or the insurance application process. And it included configuration, document generation, just all the aspects when you go to fill out a application for insurance. And when we came into the environment, what we saw was one, they were using an extremely antiquated version of Drools. And this is a company that basically has more money than God. And they decided to build their own rule engine or application on top of Drools. So there were a lot of these little edge solutions that people implemented. And the problems that we heard across the organization started to resonate with us that there's an easier way to apply Drools and bring value to the business users, because a big part of their operations relied on the business analyst. And as a part of that, when building Drools, and this will be important later when I talk, they went to a strict BDD style approach. So the business analysts were writing Jerkin scripts in Notepad. And this is where we started to see there's an easier way to apply Drools that would be more accessible to your business users without the need for technical users. And from there, we started to build a platform on top of Drools and stepped into some really interesting projects where we started to apply it. And in every one of them, started to see real value coming from that implementation.
That is exciting. And you are using like the community version, right? Just
Yes.
Drools and getting help from the community members whenever you have questions and stuff like that.
A lot of help. It's been very beneficial being a part of the community and being able to ask my questions on the forums or IRC, and really going through the documentation as well as the source code. It's an enjoyable read. So compared to some of the other open source projects that we might work with, Drools has been not only fun for us to work with, but just understandable in every aspect.
That's great to hear. So it was a customer that brought your attention to Drools. So they were already using a little bit messy, a little bit complicated, too much, an old version. So, and you started to help him to shape the things, and then you realize, wow, there's something here that's more than just to help these customers. This may be an opportunity to build things on top.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So, KimJohn, what can people expect for the presentation today before you get started? Just so everyone can settle and understand what they can see today on your talk.
Well, I plan to cover two topics. One, our technology stack, but more importantly, hard metrics that have been provided to us by our clients of the impact that Drools has had on their business. And they may seem rather fantastical as far as the numbers, but these are studies. Every one of our clients has performed a study on the implementation and the effect that Drools has had on their business and the overall process. And they're almost jaw-dropping when you hear the cost savings, the performance savings, the accuracy that's being brought about by Drools, as opposed to handwriting a rule engine or manually building their solutions. Even if it's on top of Drools, how much faster they can get to market and see the results of those rule changes.
Awesome. I'm looking forward for this presentation today. I really am.
Yeah.
And as usual, you that are at home right now, feel free to ask any questions on the chat. Just start conversation there, because we wish we could be in person, meeting in person and just looking in each other's eyes, but we cannot. So feel free. This is an open space. We can chat with each other, bring questions to KimJohn. And yeah, let's make this a productive hour. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And but Karina just mentioned that's also a good opportunity, because we are all virtual these days. We are connecting the world. So I see that we have in the chat Luca, that's in Italy now. I am here based in Westford. You're based in Brazil. Ken, where are you based at? Well,
we're in Detroit, Michigan.
So we are all over the place. That's awesome.
Indeed. So, KimJohn, I will share your screen right now, and the stage is yours, okay?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Well, I'm going to present how we make Drools accessible to everyone. And it's not moving. There we go. So the agenda for my presentation, we've already talked a little bit about who I am and how we got here. I'm going to go through our technology stack and how we implemented Drools today and where we're going in the very short-term future. And then I'm going to provide some real results that have been given to us by our clients from the implementations of Drools that we've done for their organizations. A recurring problem that everyone has right now is that there is just way too much data, and nobody knows how to use this data, how to apply it, how to analyze it. And oftentimes, once they get the data, they need to do additional transformations, different logic, different operations before it even becomes usable. What we see in all of our clients is that because they have all of this data, coupled with extremely manual processes, spreadsheets, databases, APIs, people are really wrestling with how do they make that data valuable. And that really becomes the crux of why we feel Drools is such an important technology to bring to the table, because Drools can perform a lot of that transformation, the classification, the categorization of that data, as well as use the user's own knowledge to capitalize on what is the best decision or what are the best decisions that they should take. Right now, a lot of our users do this manually. They have spreadsheets they update. They send the spreadsheets back and forth to each other. And this process repeats itself throughout the day, weeks, months, and years. And it becomes a huge problem for organizations that need to react quickly. Now, for us, we've brought Drools to a lot of different organizations. And when we refer to Drools and we say we implemented it small to mid-sized companies, these are still large corporations, global in a lot of cases. And every scenario that we have implemented Drools has shown a very significant impact. We've used it to ingest and analyze tens of millions of fire records, transform them, and then apply logic so that medical facilities can provide better quality of care. We've used Drools to evaluate insurance configurations and streamline that process to the point where most of the upfront work was being accomplished by Drools. We've mixed it with NLP and machine learning to analyze grocery products and make sure that they're safe before they even hit the shelves. And we also have used it to replicate a simulation that mixed physics with statistics to dynamically compute vehicle CO2 and fuel emission. So we've used it in very critical, high-profile projects. But we see one problem with all of our clients. They all come to us and they say, we looked at Drools, but it's a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot to it. You have your key workbench, you have your infrastructure, and that's even before they get to the point that they start working rules. So a lot of our users know what Drools is, but they're afraid to actually use it. And they're afraid to make that dive into Drools because of a lot of the infrastructure that surrounds it. And that's kind of where we come in. We said, well, we can cut that barrier down by setting up a service that basically provides rules as a service to the client and let them just focus on what's really important, which is writing the rules, testing the rules, and publishing those rules themselves. So our goal has been to implement Drools in these organizations in such a way that the business users are actually the people working in the rules, publishing them when they're ready, and then letting other downstream systems consume those rules or expose it through their own applications, which a lot of our users end up actually doing. They build on top of our engine, and they use it purely as an API, but they manage the rules and the data internally. Now, when we first started building out our platform, we had some key goals that we wanted to hit. We wanted to run in Kubernetes. We wanted to take advantage of what was starting to become the popular serverless approach. And we wanted to mix data with the rules because we felt that that was a little bit of a barrier, tying your data together to your rules in one place instead of having to go to multiple places or even rely on your technical resources to provide you that data. So we wanted to provide a one-stop shop to write, test, and publish rules. Now, when we started down our platform, Kogito did not even exist at that point. The object model was being talked about in blogs, but it was relatively new. But we kept a very close eye on it. And a lot of what we built out, we're going to swap out with Kogito. It's almost a one-to-one fit. So for us, our platform was Kubernetes, Native, and Apache Ignite as our primary stack that we use within our system. We use Camel to allow users to build their own integrations and tie different rule sets together, as well as pull data from other systems or other APIs if they want. And we follow a very classic design and test, build the jar, push that out, publish it, and then expose it automatically. And this is all done behind the scenes using Native. And Native was really important to our tech stack because it provided a certain amount of isolation for the execution. It also provided scalability, and it gave us the ability to customize edge cases or one-offs depending on who the clients were and the rule sets that they were building. The other part of our platform is tying all of that data into Drools automatically. MongoDB, S3 buckets, JSON files, Excel spreadsheets, all of those we tie together into one view that a user can do and operate everything in a single place and immediately publish those rules. So moving forward, we're going to replace our whole layer with Kogito. It's almost a one-to-one match with how Kogito works. And we followed very closely with Kogito and Quarkus and made sure that everything we do is in line with the updates or the releases that have come out. Even to the point where we've been running dual test scenarios, one using the project model, the other one using the object model, to make sure that our rules are going to be compatible and they execute. Our early tests are showing that everything's going to actually transition relatively smoothly. We have a little bit of tooling around how we use CamelK, a little bit of tooling around the integrations because of Quarkus, but our general rule sets that we're building work perfectly. And because Kogito follows that model of building out the object model and deploying it containerized within the Kubernetes stack, it's an exact mirror of what we do. So Kogito is where we're going in the very short term. And we feel that by moving to Kogito and Quarkus, we'll bring a level of scale to our system that, even though now we handle hundreds of thousands of requests per day, we'll be able to expand on. And we'll also start to be able to capitalize on JPBM, BPM processes a little bit more too, because BPM hasn't necessarily been our focus. Our focus is how do we empower users to write rules and how do we let them use them? Now, coming from the technical side, before having a platform to build upon rules, typically I would write test cases, build a harness, get it into staging, deploy it, go through the technical teams, and go through this as an iterative cycle. It was very time consuming to set up. It was very tedious. It required a lot of interaction across multiple teams, and it really delayed the ability to make a change to the rules and push them out quickly. What we've found is that this is a really significant barrier for business users. So whether you do it technically or however you go about building the rules, there's a cycle and a team of people that you have to interact with. We felt that if you can bring Drools to just writing rules, you're going to remove those barriers and allow clients to have a faster delivery of the changes that they need to make. Now, going back to the Nestle story at the beginning, they were going down a very heavy BDD approach. So we had to, as a part of our project, teach their business analysts, hundreds of them, how to write Jerkin scripts. when I look at other tools that promote very strong no-code, low-code solutions, we actually thought that that was a very limiting feature of those tools. The real power in Drools is being able to write rules. And if I can teach a business analyst how to write Jerkin scripts, I sure as hell can teach somebody how to write a DRL. Not that far of a stretch. And once our users became comfortable writing DRLs, we found that they could do it without any technical assistance. There were edge cases where they needed something rather complicated or they needed help, but for the most part, business users being able to write their own rules, test them in place, get that warm, fuzzy, confident feeling that it's going to work, really helps to accelerate the time. So by allowing the users to just write rules, we remove all the barriers that a lot of people say is an issue when they're looking to go to Drools. And when they look at other tools and they look at their solutions, because we let the users write Drools natively, there's a certain amount of power and flexibility there. We don't try to force your process. We don't try to tell you how you're going to build your rules. You can build them as you need, and you have the flexibility to do what you need with those rules. So that was something that we felt was very important in making Drools more accessible to the general population. Now, from the business side, these are actually numbers that have been given to us by our clients from our Drools implementations. And keep in mind, all of these scenarios are extremely mission critical within these organizations. They're dealing with massive amounts of data on a constant basis. So when we look at these numbers, they're nuts. They're the effect of Drools on the process in all of these clients, and I didn't even have enough room to put them on here, is rather significant. In a national grocery distributor, we were just given the numbers that we reduced their overall effort by over 500 hours. They had an accuracy rate of 50 to 60% because they did everything manually. Our engine with Drools brought that to over a 90% accuracy. When we built the vehicle simulator, originally it used to take a team of engineers many months to perform a single vehicle simulation. We were able to mix that with machine learning and process 60,000 simulations in less than a few minutes. That meant they could actually sit in a conference room, the engineers, and they could sample vehicles while they spoke and get a very highly accurate result based on the data that they put in. And that would perform millions of computations dynamically based on the data and how it changed during the flow of the rules. And that actually is something really important. A lot of other rule engines or rule platforms, they don't react to the data as it changes within the execution. They fire it as a pretty much linear process from start to finish. Being able to react to changes to data while you're executing the rules is extremely important, because in a lot of cases, the data or the facts are being changed by the rules, and that change has a cascading effect. So that's a huge benefit of using Drools that people don't even realize until they start to apply it themselves. Another scenario that we've been using Drools in very successfully is the whole region of Gold Coast, Australia. we implemented Drools with decision tables, and they can perform urban planning requirements in hours, what used to take months. It's been so successful in its rollout in Australia that it looks like it's going to actually expand across Australia into other regions, potentially across the country. The last one, of course, well, we have the healthcare. Again, millions of data points, mostly coming in as a very deep fire tree, where we use Drools to first transform those fire objects into real facts, and then applied rules against the facts, taking in medical examinations, patient history, everything relating to both the patient and the procedures, and increase the quality of care for those patients. And tens of millions of data points coming through. And then our original place where we work with Drools is working with banks, taking the expensive hourly process that's usually performed by lawyers to draft commercial lending or high finance related documents. And we use Drools to streamline that process down to the point where first drafts of these commercial loans and all the associated documents are being performed by Drools. And the lawyers are able to now turn the whole process into a transactional process versus an hourly process. So we've had extremely good success with implementing Drools, and there is an impact to the business. The problem is that everyone, and as pointed out in the first slide, is somewhat intimidated by using Drools, and that's what we are looking to change.
And Kim, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, sorry.
To interrupt you. But we are seeing a lot of questions in the chat, and I think you are
really?
getting, that people are very interested to hear from you. And
I don't see any.
Yeah, that's why we are here. We are bringing it to you.
Oh, it's in the comments section.
Yes,
I was
exactly.
looking at private chat.
No, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No, that's completely fine. So our members are questioning like how this interaction goes with the engine. Like we see like you mentioned the business analysts a few times. How do they interact? Do they writing DRLs? They are doing decision tables, GSL. What they are doing now?
Yes.
And combined with, can you tell me a little bit more about what the background of those business users that you mentioned? I think we can combine both questions from Donato and Havishkan.
Sure. So our business users work primarily in either raw DRLs, they're writing the rules themselves, or we've created a all-encompassing decision table that lets them, of course, perform the standard operations of the decision table, where they can build out their data sets and the permutations of the rules in the table, but it also lets them define their types as well as supporting data. So for our users, it's not unusual for them to have workbooks that define the base rules, supporting data, the types that support that data, and they pass that along to the business analyst to the point where once the rules have been created or the table has been structured, they're really manipulating data. And one interesting aspect of the decision table is we found there are two types of users. We call them the power users, the ones who are really writing the heavy lifting rules. But then we have the equivalent of what would be templatized rules, where they want to push that off to somebody really just to update the data and then dynamically generate the rules and execute them based on those changes in data. Now, originally, you'd have a decision table and you would upload it into the system, or you would enter it into some user interface. taking advantage of VSTO from the Excel side, we turn Excel into its own execution engine. So you can actually execute the rules in real time as you're updating the decision table and see the results of that data in corresponding sheets coming back. So you think about it from somebody who might be doing some analysis in the field, they're very familiar with Excel. No doubt, all our users know what Excel is and how to use it, and they feel very comfortable in it.
Exactly. Excel is the best tool. Like everyone loves Excel, especially business users, right?
I like Excel until I cross about 250,000 rows. Then I want to
right.
And that's a light one.
Oh my God.
But what it does is it turns Excel, in a sense, into the user interface. And those users can operate in the field using Excel directly. And again, in real time, it's constantly communicating back to the engine, rebuilding the rule set if needed, adjusting the data. It's executing right in Excel. Users don't even have to go into a system. They work out of the spreadsheet itself.
Great. And adding to that, one question on top, the last one that I have here is, what was the learning curve for these business analysts to deal with that?
3 to 4 weeks tends to be what we have seen in our own studies. And it really varies with the complexity of the rules. But again, keep in mind, we taught 100 plus business analysts how to write Jerkin scripts. And a Jerkin's similar in style and concept and format. And they were doing that in Notepad. So with proper instruction and understanding at least the bare minimum of constraints and how the rules work with each other, we've honestly found that it doesn't take a lot of ramp up time. It takes a little bit of patience, but it doesn't take a lot of ramp up time. Our users are generally capable of writing basic Drools within the first few days. And then oftentimes what happens, we'll find a champion who really dives into Drools and really starts to understand the syntax, the nomenclature and nuances, and they'll build out rules, and then users will start tweaking them. And little by little, by the end of a month, we usually see our users fully capable of writing rules. I'd say covering 60 to 70% of what their use cases are.
So I have a question there, because I remember seeing in the slides that where is it? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, just messing everything up. That so you were saying that they are going to, you will have the power users who create like the base for the business users to write their rules on top of it or to change the values. But then when you need to deploy it, does it go like, does it get packaged with Maven, published?
Oh, so this is the cool part.
Yes, okay.
Now we get into the fun stuff. So one issue.
No, but if you have more, I can wait until the point.
No. This is a great question. So one issue was when we talked to our corporate clients, and again, Drools is always the first platform that they look at. One of the fears is that you have to bring in, it's preferable to bring in Maven, preferable to bring in GitHub because of the interaction. We wanted to shield that from the users. So the way that we work with Drools, we're still doing the same stuff behind the scenes, but they're building the rules and they click a publish button and it takes care of all those steps for them behind the scenes, pushes out that compiled jar into the container, deploys it automatically, and actually exposes it through a system level API. But then they can further customize that with Camel if they want and actually create an API on top of that. So we do perform the exact same types of steps that is performed now by Drools. And this is why the move to Kogito is really very smooth for us so far, because we're not really doing anything different. We're just tying that functionality behind the scenes and letting them execute it themselves. The same with testing. And this is actually, I meant to bring this up. One part of implementing Drools that we have found makes our business users' lives easier is integrating testing as a part of that API. So the ability to write rules, sample it right there on the spot, and see what the effect of that rule is. Now, taking that a step further, we've all worked with rule sets where you have a rogue rule that's running in there, but you're not really sure why. You have a hunch, so maybe I have 1,000 rules. We give our users the ability to isolate those rules and pick and choose which ones they may want to run in a sample so that they can whittle down to where the root cause might be of the issue, or even just see how these 3 rules will interact with each other outside of the full rule set itself.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you for the answer. Okay, I think we can move on with the presentation now. If there are more questions, we'll bring it to you, okay?
I did not see these at all. I'm trying to scan through them.
Don't worry about it.
I saw somebody in there, 80% cost savings is very strong. It's, again, I'm using a little bit of my own experience in building Drools, and I am not one that's fond of tools. I like sitting with my IDE and building out my test cases, but I have literally sat with a client and just experimented with rules on the spot, building, testing, deploying, and within an hour, push that live, and now downstream systems are able to consume it. So it definitely has its advantages. And you know, my one of almost last slide these are actual quotes that we've received from clients where Drools has come into play, and they're rather significant. I lost my mouse. Oh, there we go. So again, our focus to replace Drools, we're not trying to dumb it down. We're honestly trying to promote it within the business community as a very strong platform for building complex logic against complex data sets and showing what that value is. Because compared to a lot of the other tools out there, my own personal opinion is Drools is nowhere near as complicated. It can look a little intimidating. Maybe setting up that infrastructure could be a little intimidating. But once you remove those barriers and you bring it down to just the basics, write rules, test the rules in place, deploy them when you're ready, and put that into the fingertips of your business users. Again, the numbers show what the results are. Way faster delivery, way better accuracy, way more streamlined process. So all in all, Drools is an amazing platform, and we're excited about the move to Kogito and what it's going to bring to our platform, and eventually the incorporation of BPM as a part of that, because that's one part we really haven't focused on. We've focused purely on rule implementation and execution. And that is the end of my presentation.
Awesome. So guys, if you have any extra questions, this is the moment to drop it on the chat. So,
I do
wow.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I have some questions, but go ahead.
Apache Ignite honestly played a very strong role in our platform and is actually going to play a very strong role in our future platform. We found that using Ignite not only for its caching capability, but an ability to federate data and bring them into rule sets was extremely valuable, especially if it was volatile data. And these are huge data sets. But we also had really good success with distributed compute and moving Drools to the Ignite nodes to perform the processing right on the nodes where the data was before we did any transfer back and forth. So Ignite was huge as far as our stack goes.
Before I have one question here. Are the authoring tool that you have, are these collaborative, so people can collaborate building these rules?
Yes.
And what means collaborative? So there's a lot of meaning collaborative. You can multiple people at the same time, or they can see each other. How it works?
Our latest version that we'll be coming out with will be fully collaborative. That'll give multiple people the ability to work in the same rule. Right now, as far as interaction, multiple people can work in rules. The way that we manage the versions is somewhat naive, but it does allow them the ability to work in the same rules and then pick and choose which one they want to actually deploy.
Great. I have a question now, a curiosity.
And actually, an interesting point. This is where Knative has been very handy. So during our testing phases, two people could be working in the exact same rule, making changes. And since each of those are being spun up separately, they're free to move about in that rule, make whatever changes they want until they decide to publish it.
But that's because
they
they are working locally, right? Is that because they're working locally?
They're working in a web application.
Okay.
And a question: have you looked into DMN as a decision model notation? What are your thoughts about that? Have you exposed this to your customers? Have you talked about this about their users and clients?
We're in the midst right now of a major project between a national bank here in the US, and the decision modeling notation, it's one of their requirements. And so we're actually working with them and trying to look at how we would integrate that into our platform so that they would be able to apply it.
Awesome. More questions, and one more question around this too with DMN. So are you planning to expose these as the DMN editor as part of these arrangements that you have, like how they are altering, how they are collaborating with the DMN, how you foresee that is just the beginning?
Eventually, our first step is so for us, our focus has been get rules down, do it well. And now we'd like to move more into the BPM space. And we're also trying to add some of the niceties that you may see, like the guided editors, a little bit more user-friendly editing. And then our next step would be to expand into DSLs and decision modeling.
Okay, cool.
So do you have the concept of rule set extractor? Like,
Yes.
For example, extract a subset of rules for the runtime deployment, for instance. Only marked as tested already are extracted.
Yes, that's the premise of our testability, because I know from my experience, sometimes it started out with trying to isolate which rules were not working. So our users have the ability to selectively pick which rules would make up, for lack of better words, a temporary rule set and execute that against a data store.
Awesome. And does it run on premise or on the cloud or both?
We primarily run in the cloud, but since everything is containerized, we've actually been able to run it on premise behind a firewall as well.
Perfect.
Now, I will cover that with, we haven't quite vetted out, how Kogito and Quarkus will play with that behind the firewall, but we have deployed this within like a compose environment, for example, to be able to experiment and use behind a firewall.
Awesome. Pretty nice. Exciting presentation today, KimJohn. Thanks for that. It was a great presentation.
Yeah.
Oh, we use AWS. I just saw the last question now that I'm watching.
Yeah, yes. So you are using AWS. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So do you manage and monitor the platform? And do you use CEP, complex event processing?
No, we do not use the event processing as of now. As far as our management and monitoring, we've integrated Elastic as a part of our layer on top of Drools. We've built out components that leverage Elastic that give us a much deeper insight into rule execution, rule flow, typically through the use of the listeners.
Perfect.
That's cool.
Porcelli, do you have any extra questions from yourself?
No, I don't for now, but it was very good presentation. Thank you very much, Kim.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Kim, I took the freedom to go and search you on LinkedIn so I could share with everyone. So if you want more information or if you want to keep connected to KimJohn to know more about his experience with Drools, here is his LinkedIn. Feel free to connect to him. He's a pretty nice guy, as you all can see. KimJohn, we are really happy to have you. We were really happy to have you here today.
Thank you. And yes, we are considering DMN as our last step because of a requirement.
Perfect. Yeah, there's this small delay in between the questions there in our answers. So that's why the questions sometimes take a while to arrive here. But I think so. If there are no more questions from you guys, or if you have, just drop it over. It's time to talk to KimJohn right now. If not, we are about to wrap up. Okay. So as I said, great presentation. Thank you a lot for this. And let's keep chatting. Let's connect later and keep on building this bridge. Okay.
And I'm looking to hear more from you in our community, in our forums, in our chat system. Now we are moving to Zulip. I want to see you there.
Oh, you will.
Perfect. Have a great day, KimJohn. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everyone, next week we have already a scheduled session. So if you want to be aware of all the sessions that we do for the KieLive, here is the place that you need to subscribe. Just give a follow, a follow there, and you will get an email every time we post a new session. So that's it. Thank you for your participation here today.
Thank you. And just before we go, remember, subscribe, like this video.
You won't stop playing that, right?
Okay. Thank you very much. See you around.